I'd like to call to order the May 8th, 2023 City of Canal Winchester Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Time in is 7:01. Mr. Ritchie, please call the roll.
Mr. Ritchie, here. Mr. Wildenthaler. Mr. Donahue.
Here.
Ms. Gooden. Ms. McDonald. Mr. Deeds.
Here.
Mr. Cosgrove.
Here. Motion to excuse Mr. Wildenthaler, Ms. Gooden, and Ms. McDonald.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove.
Yes.
Now I'll need the approval of the minutes from the April 10th meeting, please.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Paulsgrove, second by Mr. Deeds. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue.
Yes.
Mr. Deeds.
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove.
Yes.
Now is the time for public comment for items that are not on our agenda this evening. If you'll be speaking with us this evening, would you please stand and take an oath if there's any chance you'll talk to the commission? Do you swear to be truthful in the testimony you give and tell the truth and nothing but the truth? If so, please say I do.
I do.
Thank you. And I will note that Ms. McDonald has arrived. All right, I'll turn it over to staff for our first application.
The first application on tonight's agenda is conditional use 23-002. Address subject property 7 South High Street. The request this evening is a conditional use to section 1161 to allow for an event space on the subject property. The subject property is located on the south side of High Street. It is located in Old Town Canal Winchester, zoned Old Town Commercial. This proposed use is located on the first floor of the subject building. The applicant is requesting approval for an event space in the subject property. Chapter 1161.04 of the conditional uses for the Old Town District has a line item that says other compatible uses not expressly prohibited in the prohibited section of the zoning district. Since a event space is not defined in our definitions and is not in the prohibited section, it is applicable for the conditional use criteria of this application. The subject property is a 2-story historic brick building. Fantasy Cupcakes operates to the left of the proposed tenant space at 3 South High, and there's a private office space on the second floor at 5 South High. The vacant space to be rented is approximately 1,082 square feet. The facility was most recently rented for office space and professional uses. The floor plan is provided on the right, showing it as an open floor plan. The applicant has indicated that they would like for the space to be flexible, used up to 7 days a week, as late as 10 p.m. and could accommodate up to 49 patrons with their services. The applicant has provided a brief bio about the business. There are other spaces they operate in German Village. Looking at the space they have in German Village, they use it currently as a micro event space, and then when there's no events in progress, they use it as a photography studio. When looking at the space they have now, typically they do about 10 to 20 rentals per month, averaging in 4 hours. Their hours of operation for this rental space is from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then she talks about the micro weddings, bridal showers, luncheons, workshops, that type of event that happens at this space, and some photographs of what it looks like fully dressed, and then also the flexibility of it in the lower right hand corner. The applicant notes for this space they would like to do something with more guests, 10 to 49. They would like to have the tables and chairs in the space to be included as part of the rental agreement. Want this to be full service Monday through Sunday. And then the events, they are requesting for them to close no later than 10 p.m. When looking at the rental types, they're requesting corporate events, showers, celebrations of life, birthday parties, micro weddings, rehearsal dinners, workshops, and holiday get-togethers. All these photos in the background are also pictures of the current event space they have in German Village. Applicant has provided some information for this space, talking about it's all going to be self-catered. Parking is available in the public parking lots and on-street parking. Talking about using it as a photography studio when it's not being rented out. Some restrictions they're going to have for the events they have in the facility, and then just noting that it's going to be secure with security cameras as well. And then the applicant has provided a copy of our public parking map just to show the parking in the area that will help facilitate some of the rentals that they are requesting. The 3-star are the big public parking lots that are in close proximity. Based on the considerations within my staff report and the criteria of section 1145, staff is recommending that conditional use 23-002 for an event space within the Old Town Commercial District be approved as presented.
Questions for staff? Anything the applicant wishes to add or share?
Sure. Hi, I'll just introduce myself because I know that not everyone knows me. My name's Chelsea. I've been running Flat 51 in German Village with my business partner now since 2015. We started in a smaller space that was honestly just like a corporate conference room that they needed rented because the facility wasn't using it anymore. But after time utilizing it as a photography studio, because that's what I am as a photographer primarily, we realized there was a need for these micro event spaces, particularly in German Village at that time. The building owner that we worked with at the time then allowed us to expand into a new space and a new building across the parking lot from them. And we've been able to kind of bring some fun to the space, as well as we started a farmer's market, or a maker's market is what it's called down there. So a lot of expanding and using local artists and small businesses and being able to support them in that way. I reached out to my neighbors, the direct neighbors, Fantasy Cupcake, Leander Boutique, Corner Smiths, and just asked them if they could send me letters of recommendation, which I have if you'd like me to present them. But ultimately, I just think it would really benefit Canal. I've seen a lot of need, not only on the social media Canal Winchester Connection page, but also just hearing the buzz around town from people similar to me for something like this in our area. And I've talked to the local businesses about how we can partner for really cool ideas like date nights for parents, where we can facilitate activities for kids and they can go have a dinner at local restaurants, et cetera, and just feel like safe and bringing more energy to downtown Canal. So, thank you.
Thank you. This is conditional use, so I'll open it up for public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, seeing no rush, I move we close.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Need a motion.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve CU-23-002.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, second by Mr. Deeds. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Conditional use approved. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
The next application on tonight's agenda is variance 23-005. The address subject property is 800 West Waterloo Street. The request this evening is a variance from chapter 1199.04A to allow for a building to exceed the build-to line for the subject parcel. This property is zoned general commercial, consisting of 2.6 acres on the north corner of West Waterloo Street and Gender Road. All surrounding properties are zoned general commercial. This property is also subject to the commercial development standards, which is what the variance relief is being requested from. The subject property consists of an existing convenience market, car wash, and fuel pumps for the Duchess and BP Fueling Center. The applicant is requesting to demolish the existing convenience market and car wash for a new building to be constructed on the site. The existing site conditions are up on the screen here. The fuel pump and canopy to the south is proposed to remain with this project. This property has two frontages, one on the south and one on the west. The Gender Road frontage to the west has a build-to line at 50 feet, which notes that the building needs to be between 45 and 55 feet away from Gender Road to hit that build-to line. The West Waterloo Street frontage has a build-to line of 25 feet, noting that the building needs to be between 20 and 30 feet away from West Waterloo Street to meet that build-to line. This variance request here is specifically for the West Waterloo Street build-to line at 25 feet. The applicant notes they are 102.29 feet away from that 25-foot build-to line, or approximately 120 feet from West Waterloo Street. The application in this instance, this variance is being requested because the applicant is demolishing the existing building and demolishing and reconfiguring the parking in between the building and the street, and then not removing the fuel canopy. So they're asking for relief to put the building approximately back where it was previously. So when looking at this rendering here, everything that's in the dark kind of gray hatched is all existing impervious surface that is being redone. All the lighter color for the parking and access is impervious surface that's remaining during this project. Staff has reviewed the application and has noted that special circumstances and conditions exist which are not applicable to other lands and structures. Again, the applicant is looking to reconstruct the automobile convenience market behind a gas canopy that is proposed to remain. With the canopy remaining at the front of the site, the build-to line along West Waterloo Street is not achievable. The applicant has pushed the building as far west as possible to meet the Gender Road build-to line. The existing building footprint on this slide does not meet either build-to lines. The literal interpretation of the zoning code, again, would require the applicant to demolish and relocate the fuel canopy in order to meet the build-to line requirements for the new structure. Special circumstances and conditions should be considered for this application. The existing building, again, does not meet the commercial development standards for its setbacks, and the new building will meet one of the two requirements, so putting it further into compliance. And that granting a setback variance will not create a safety concern. The building is forced location with a fuel canopy that is to remain. With the new store construction, the applicant is proposing to construct a public sidewalk along the frontage of the site connecting to the existing sidewalk system at the adjacent Aldi's. Again, just making this building more compliant, more pedestrian friendly. That is one of the goals of the commercial development standards, is to have the buildings as close to the public walkway as possible. So with that being said, staff is recommending that variance VA 23-005 be approved as presented.
Questions for staff?
I do.
Okay.
I'm still looking at the setbacks on this and looking at this, the 50-foot setback on Gender Road, which is being met. And I'm looking at the 25-foot setback, which doesn't even encompass the building or the canopy. I'm still confused as to why they need a variance for this if they're not within the 25-foot.
So in this instance, it's not a building setback, which is the minimum threshold away from the right-of-way. It is a build-to line, which means the building has to be pulled to that 25-foot line.
Oh, okay.
So the building does not sit at 25 feet, so that's the variance.
Okay, I understand now. Thank you.
When the station was originally built, was a variance issued for the setback?
So this building
For the
was
build
a
line.
Sohio Fuel Center before, and it was in the early 70s when there
Right.
was no
Right.
zoning for the property.
Yeah, I thought so, just wanted to,
The build-to line regulations were adopted in 2012.
that's okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff?
No.
Would the applicant like to share anything in addition to what staff has shared? If you could just please sign in and state your name for the record.
So, my name's John Gordon. I'm with Inglefield Oil Company. I have cards, if that helps. Anyway, I guess I'd just like to add that we're also going to replace the underground storage tanks, which will, as obvious from this, are older, and that will be double-walled tanks, the latest and greatest, for not a better way. And we'll also replace the product lines, which will be, again, double-walled. And so it's a serious upgrade to the safety concerns of underground environmental. So I guess I just wanted to also mention that. And I also have my architect with me and my engineer to answer any technical questions, because they're a lot smarter than I am. So anyway.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant from the commission?
No.
Thank you, sir.
I got to sign it.
So I will open this up for public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I move we close public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Ritchie, second by Mr. Paulsgrove. Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes. I'd like to make a motion that we approve variance VA-23-005.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Ms. McDonald. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
All right, variance is approved.
The next application is variance 23-006. The request this evening is a variance from chapter 1199.05A to allow for parking to be located between the building and the public right-of-way. This application here, same scenario as the previous. The applicant is demolishing the existing building and then removing the configuration of the parking between the building and the fuel canopy and reconstructing it. So with the change to the site application, they are required to meet our current commercial overlay standards, which would require the parking to be located behind the building and no more than 50% of the parking to the side of the building. So with this request, the applicant is proposing to construct 13 parking spaces on the south side of the building, which would put it between the building and the West Waterloo Street right-of-way. The south property line also has been determined to be the primary frontage of the building. Sometimes that is looked at by the commission differently, depending on the parking location and what's the primary versus secondary frontage. Again, section 1199.05A notes all parking spaces, drives, or other structures for vehicular parking and movement shall be located to the rear or side of the principal building. The applicant has presented their statement for why the parking should remain, and staff concurs that special circumstances and conditions exist. Again, the applicant is requesting to reconstruct the convenience market and leave the gas pump and canopy in its proposed location. With the literal interpretation of the zoning code, again, it would require that the fuel center be basically deconstructed to move the building up to relocate the parking. It would also essentially relocate the fuel pumps to be on a different side of the building, because that's typically where they want the parking in between the fuel canopy and the building itself. Special circumstances and conditions should be considered. Again, the existing building has parking between the building and the fuel pump canopy. The applicant is looking to clean that way the parking is structured up. So if you look at the 13 spaces on the screen here and compare it to the previous orientation, there is a strange kind of relief where the parking is offset in the existing configuration. So this is relocating this to be more of a standard process. So staff is recommending that variance application 23-006 be approved as presented.
Questions for staff on this variance?
No.
Anything the applicant wishes to add? I'll now open it up for public comment.
I move to close.
Second.
Roll call.
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes. All right, I'd like to make a motion that we approve variance VA-23-006.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by Ms. McDonald. Roll call, please.
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. McDonald? Mr. Donahue? Sorry about that.
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Paulsgrove?
Yes.
on certain days.
I was looking at one day and reading.
Variance is approved.
The last application on tonight's agenda is Site Development Plan 23-003. The request this evening is a site development plan for a new 4,530 square foot automobile convenience market. Again, the property is in general commercial, consists of 2.6 acres on the northeast corner of West Water Street and Gender Road. As previously discussed, the applicant is proposing a build-to line variance from West Waterloo Street, which was approved with variance application 23-005. The Gender Road build-to line and side yard setbacks are being met with this application. The site has two existing curb cuts on the south property line. The easternmost access point is full access, and the western is a right in, right out. The plans show that these access points are going to remain as is. However, the applicant is proposing to construct a 5-foot sidewalk along the entire frontage of West Waterloo Street, and then connecting the front door to the convenience market on the east side of the site. The proposed site plan shows 22 total parking stalls. 13 are located on the south side of the building, 9 to the east of the building. The applicant received variance approval VA 23-006 this evening for the 13 spaces on the south side of the building facing the West Waterloo Street right-of-way. The applicant has provided a truck turning exhibit for the commission. This exhibit was really to show the sizing of the access drives that circumvent the building. Then when looking at the landscape plan provided, the applicant is proposing to screen the site with a hedgerow from West Waterloo Street frontage. There's also proposed landscape beds around the building and 8 new trees around the site. The urban forester reviewed the updated landscape plan dated May 5th, 2023, and found it to be in compliance with the landscape code for the species diversity and quantity. The applicant has provided a parking lot photometrics plan for the site. This photometrics plan shows they are proposing 9 new parking lot light fixtures to be installed. The parking lot lights will be a maximum of 18 feet tall and will feature a historic bellhead fixture with LED lighting. The existing fuel canopy is proposed to remain as is, as noted in earlier applications. As such, they're not proposing to change the lighting under the fuel canopy. So when you're looking at the photometric cut sheets at the bottom, it exceeds our current 20-foot candles. But since they're not looking to change it or modify it, I just had the applicant note that in their renditions here. Also on the screen, you can see the fixtures for what's going on in the building, just showing the applicant is trying to match the fixture style between the two. The applicant has provided an interior floor plan to the building. This floor plan kind of shows really what's going on behind the scenes. The south elevation here has lots of window glass. We asked the applicant to add some window glass onto the Gender Road side since it is a front elevation. As such, the applicant, with the interior kind of programming, is proposing to frost those windows on that elevation. It would be similar to what you could see at Friendship Kitchen, and I believe Sheets will have a frosted window as well on their proposed application. When looking at the building elevations here, the applicant has proposed a building to be constructed of 100% masonry brick. This brick is in a gray color called French Manor. In this elevation, you can see the 40% window glass on the south elevation is being met, along with at least 40% window glass on the Gender Road frontage, which is again proposed to be frosted. Some of the architectural features, such as the push-in of the relief in the building, the 3 parapet walls that are designed, and then some of the decorative columns and exposed gutter features on the sides of the building. When looking at the east side of the building, the applicant is proposing 2 brick screening walls for the ice and propane. Again, this is similar to what is being installed at Sheets, and I believe Friendship Kitchen is looking to do something similar as well. After seeing there's a solution to what they wanted to do to install these. The applicant has provided signage details here and canopy details. The canopy itself has some open areas between it, as well as some covering immediately over the doorway that's being highlighted here. And then we're looking at the wall signage that is shown to be individual channel letters that are internally lit and halo lit to be on the building. The applicant has provided some renditions to show kind of perspective of the site, shows what the building looks like, along with the proposed landscaping and the new access with the sidewalk. So a couple different elevations I put on the screen here for you guys' review. And then when looking at this building in context to everything around it in the entire kind of plaza itself, staff had asked for this applicant to see if they could do this building in a similar red brick, that is to match the rest of the plaza. The applicant had submitted a rendering showing what the building would look like in the Glengarry Ravinia to match the rest of the commercial corridor. However, the leadership at BP and Dutchess has requested that their standard brick color be presented for the application this evening. But staff is recommending that the brick that matches the rest of the shopping center be utilized. It could be seen in the adjacent Aldi and Hampton Inn, which are not a part of the formal Waterloo Crossing Shopping Center, but the Planning and Zoning Commission had asked those buildings to match the rest of the corridor. So staff is recommending the proposed site plan SDP 23-006 be approved with the following conditions. The applicant use the red brick to match the rest of the commercial corridor. Questions from the commission?
Mr. Moore, the high-rise sign?
Yes.
Does that meet the code?
So this is an existing high-rise sign. They're just requesting to do a face change, and a face change is permitted since the sign is existing.
Okay. Any other questions for staff?
That was my question. Actually, how about, I believe we're working to connect the sidewalk across 33. So is it on this side of the road? Like, should we have this go up to, 33? Because otherwise there's going to be, the sidewalk will come across the bridge and then it's a
Yeah,
pretty decent
If you look at
decline.
the rendering on your screen, Mr. Deeds, you can see the sidewalk connection there. So we've passed along their site plan to our engineer.
Great.
We'll have to work out the grading, but essentially, when we build the connection, it'll connect to the sidewalk,
Okay.
which will go up to the limited access right away.
All right, great, thanks. I guess I didn't catch that detail.
Yeah, it's shown on these 3D renditions, but not the site plans.
Got it, yeah, that's what I was, looked like it dead-ended.
Any other
Great.
questions for staff? Anything the applicant wishes to share, or questions for the applicant?
I just wanted to comment on the color of the building. As mentioned, upper management has said that I need to stay with our traditional color of the gray brick. It's more of a white, and it's actually very similar to Friendship. That's what we're looking to build, the same thing.
Yes, my only comments, it's an absolute marked improvement from what's there now. So,
Well,
thank you.
yes, there will not be a car wash, and the car wash will be removed.
So, thank you.
And so that was their only request, that they change the brick from the red that we don't use, and stay with our traditional colors.
And as you get closer to the shopping center, I understand where Friendship is and the different colors, but as you get over closer to the shopping center, I've been on the commission for a while, and try to keep the consistency of the area. So that's one of the big pushes for the color.
Is there a way we could ask for some kind of combination? Because I think if you look at Hampton as several different colors, it's not just a, was there any discussion along those lines?
I even thought there was a building close by that had a white brick underneath, like a fascia look to it. I'm not that familiar with this area, I'm sorry. But seemed to me there was something that was of a different two-tone kind of look.
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
all gray on Hampton.
anyway, my thought is that I need to push for our traditional standard brick color. Actually, what we normally do is brick with a board and batten, and staff had asked that I get rid of the board and batten. So I guess I also want to comment that I've stepped away from our traditional look in that we have brick with board and batten on the front, and staff asked that I go to all brick, and which I did, and so I'm asking for a variance on the color.
So my question is that I went over there and sat in the parking lot and envisioned your new build, and it is going to look really nice. So thank you for doing that upgrade. But I also think that if it's going to stick out as a unit that's not part of the overall feeling and the overall look of that whole area, I think for us, it's going to look a little out of place. And I understand and respect your corporate colors, but I know that there's other corporations that are in the general area that aren't using their corporate colors either. And so my preference would be that you use the red brick to make it
Well-
consistent with the area that's around it.
I guess, first of all, I would not be able to make that commitment this evening. And if I don't receive the variance, where I run into is a serious time issue. I can't order any materials for the building. I can't do anything until I have my zoning. And that all of a sudden pushes me, ideally I start in July because I have to have asphalt. I'm in Ohio by Thanksgiving. So if there is any changes, then I will have to push back my start date, which could push it in the next year or beyond, because we'll take, the $4 million I want to spend and go somewhere else, basically. When they come back, I'm not sure, but that's, I guess, where I stand.
So is it, Mr. Moore, Mr. Hare, was there any conversation about color outside of changing from the Glengarry Ravenna from what was proposed in the application? Like a combination or somewhere in the middle? Is there, I guess I'm asking, is there another color that,
Yeah, so the applicant is right. The first rendition, the first pass of the building they presented was about a 50% white board and batten, and then a 50% gray brick. We asked for the building design to really have stronger details and be simplified and kind of match the rest of the corridor a little better. We did send the color of the Glengarry brick sample to the applicant, that way they could render it. That's what's on the screen. After this process was done with the architect, the applicant had noted that, again, their leadership wanted to do their standard brick color, and that they weren't really interested in doing anything different this time. So we got a different building design that was originally proposed, just not the color we asked the applicant to make it.
Where was the board and batten originally? Was it on the two standouts that have the
Carter, do you have
signage?
Yeah, I don't have,
Could I-
I'm Carter Bean, the architect. This is a far cry from what was originally proposed and intended. Englefield has created a new prototype that they've been rolling out in many different places, and that was initially the intent to bring here. They want some brand recognition across all of their stores. This building is significantly different than that. There was a considerable amount of board and batten, the parapets were lower. The entire architecture of this building is significantly different from what Englefield wanted to do.
I'm running, get my iPad, I didn't think I was going to
Sure.
do it. So I can show you where we started.
Yeah. So I guess my point in bringing all of that up is ownership at Englefield has really bent over in major regards to the building design And the brick color is the one remaining item that they just don't want to let go. So they felt as though they bent more than enough, and we're hoping to at least maintain that palette to stabilize a little bit of recognition between stores. So that's all I wanted to add.
Give you two more minutes, I'll show you where we started with the, I'm sorry, the staff, thank you.
Without seeing the board and batten, my initial thought, my initial opinion is maintaining the brand recognition where the signage is, maintaining the gray brick where the signage is, and then to match and blend in better with the standard is having the red brick on the sides, doing some type of,
Look at the Hampton where we had red and gray.
yeah.
So I think something like that, maybe the parapets or the contrasting color or something.
Something to blend.
But yeah, I
with
think,
I just want to show you where we had started
traditional
with
location.
Thank you.
with staff and how far we've come with parapet walls. You know, the board and batten, as I've mentioned. So it was just, yeah, I think you guys have seen it.
Probably a few times.
Smack bite. Actually, we've had several meetings.
Any other questions for the applicant? Is there anything you wish, any other comments from the applicant?
I've heard a little bit of conversation about two-toning the building, and I don't know that that would improve things. I think a single brick color is probably better on a building of this size. You know, we don't have multiple stories to define, you know, base, middle, top as well. So really that's all I wanted to add. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I hear that, Carter. One question would be, if we could approve the variance today as a group and do something like we set a minimal 60% of the red brick,
Okay.
the remaining 40% or better. So if you decided as a team that you want to do the whole thing red, go right ahead. Or if you decided as a team you want to do the whole thing 80% of red, whatever. But then we could set some sort of minimal, allows you to move forward with doing everything other than having to deal with corporate, which I understand dealing with corporations sometimes are problematic. But that's one option.
I'm a little confused. What you were saying was mix the brick colors?
Saying a possibility, instead of where the board and batten was, maybe that is the red brick and kind of blends it in. The thought originally was, my thought, not the team's, one person's opinion, is where your signage is and keeps the brand logo, leaving those couple of towers where the high parapet is with the gray brick, and then having the red around the perimeters, and leaving the branding look, leaving that. It's an option.
It's not my call.
Yep.
Off the top of my head, they will say, why? Why should we do that?
Then they could go all
I'm sorry.
red.
Huh?
Then that would leave them the ability to go all red.
I know. So I'm just saying, what was passed on to me was that we need to stick with the gray color.
Thank you. So if we were to do what Mr. Ritchie is proposing and put a condition in that it's either a certain percentage or they work with staff on kind of the final details, is that?
I would make sure your recommendation is hyper-specific and that it's a certain percentage of each elevation or the total building. You know, or if you want to determine what features, you know, but the problem with having gray area is it's going to be impossible to direct after this discussion. So, you know, if you blatantly want to say 60% of each elevation, that's something math can just work out as whatever they turn it. But as a reminder, it's whatever they turn in at that point, so.
Yep.
The only two-tone building I can think of, two-tone brick, is Panera in that area. Everything else, I mean, they maybe have a stone water table or, you know, something that's another material, but in terms of two tones of brick, that's the only one I can think of that's in that area. And they have like the drive-through features of a different colored brick and some of the items that stick out from the building. The main base of the building being all the same color.
So my opinion is that we should try to stick with the red brick to keep the consistency. And I know that one of the other applications we had prior to this was one of the major corporations wanting to change their corporate logo and paint, and we denied that application. And that was a pretty big corporation, so I understand. But it's, again, my only opinion is that I think we should try to stick with the red brick. I'm only one vote.
No, appreciate that comment. Anybody care to make a motion?
Is the fuel center still going to remain the white-green?
Yes, the fuel center is proposed to be unchanged.
It doesn't look bad together. I live in Worthington and there's a red brick BP with that same canopy.
Got it.
It doesn't contrast.
Anybody care to make a motion?
Guess it depends if it's with or without conditions.
We've got one condition recommended by staff for the red brick, Glenn Gary Ravenna. And I would tend to agree that, you know, all of the buildings in that area are of the same
Right.
tone and,
Okay. All right, well, I'll take a stab at a recommendation. I'd like to make a motion, we approve site development plan SDP-23-003 with staff's recommendation for the red brick specification.
I'll second that. Motion made by Mr. Deeds, second by the chair. Roll call?
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
So the site development plan is passed with the one recommendation.
In terms of old new business, the steering committee for the community plan is in the beginning drafting stages for that process now. They are reviewing some draft appendices that will go into the document, and shortly, hopefully, we'll be looking at some draft chapters to look at. The McKenna Consulting team and staff have weekly discussions to go over, you know, what their progress is. So we're pushing to get stuff back out to you guys on the steering committee. The three of you that are, I guess the two of the three of you are here. In terms of other old new business, Luke, I didn't know if you want to touch base on the North Point this evening. Other than that, I don't have anything else for discussion.
All right. Motion adjourned.
So moved?
Mr. Ritchie, yes. Mr. Donahue?
Yes.
Ms. McDonald?
Yes.
Mr. Deeds?
Yes.
Mr. Cosgrove?
Yes.
Short and sweet.
Timeout, 7:44 PM.
I tried to give them way out.